talk that I gave on precepts last month. So about half. I might be repeating myself a little bit because that talk didn't get recorded. So first of all, precepts. Taking precepts, what does it mean in the context of history of Buddhism and who we are right now in Albuquerque 2025? The word precepts means sila. It comes from the word sila. Is that correct? Yeah. So this sila is something that is an essential part of our Buddhist practice. We feature seated meditation in our daily coming together, to practice together. But this other component, sila, of virtue, discipline, morality, the ethics, you could say, of our practice, 24/7, is very essential to our practice, as well as seated meditation. And in a minute, I'll recite the 10 precepts that we'll be offering to people. I thought about this a lot in terms of how to offer precepts to this community. I come from a tradition or a sangha that is entirely lay, and precepts are offered equally to everyone. There are requirements, and I'll get into those later. But for me, I feel it's important that the precepts be available to everyone who would like to dedicate themselves to this practice. In my Korean lineage tradition, first a fairly new student would take 5 precepts, and then later on 10, and then 15, and it just went on and on. I'm exaggerating. But it started to feel a little bit too much hierarchical. I think the critical thing is to simply take them. The basic 10 are enough. Enough to last any one of us our whole lives and still have something to chew on, for sure. So I thought I'd just read something that I read at the talk last month, and that was to quote the words of the Buddha in one of the early sutras where he talks about the precepts as a gift, And to quote one small example, he says, "There is the case where a disciple of the noble ones, abandoning the taking of life, abstain from taking life. In doing so, he gives freedom from danger, freedom from animosity, freedom from oppression to limitless numbers of beings. In giving freedom from danger, freedom from animosity, freedom from oppression to limitless numbers of beings, he gains a share in limitless freedom from danger, freedom from animosity, and freedom from oppression. This is the first gift, the first great gift, original, long-standing, traditional, ancient, unadulterated from the beginning, that is not open to suspicion, will never be open to suspicion, and is unfaulted by knowledgeable contemplatives and Brahmins." So that this is the early teaching style where it's repetitive, and in its teaching style, it just hammers home this point. So that the precepts are not commandments per se. They are our commitments to try to uphold them moment by moment. So in this sense, they are really truly open to everyone if we are willing to have that as our guiding principle. I said earlier that we tend to focus on seated meditation, but really there are several components to our practice, and we need to keep those alive. We've seen all too often the abuses of particularly Zen teachers in the past, so that the ethics of Zen, the ethics of meditation, of Buddhism, are very, very critical for all of us. So taking precepts and also reciting the vows, as we just did earlier, are a way for us to keep our direction clear, that we can reinforce and attain our bodhisattva path. A second aspect of our practice is bowing, prostration. And it's a foreign concept to all of us as Westerners, but to bow, to practice prostrations, is a way to balance the scales of karma, to let go of everything when we lay ourselves down on the floor or just bow like this. We're letting go of everything, and as soon as we are rising up with our full kind of complete Buddha nature. Meditation, of course, is our practice of developing clear mind and unmoving center. Chanting, as we did this morning, is a practice of generosity of spirit and heart. And the fifth aspect of our training is wisdom training. And this is what we gain by pulling together all those other practices with Dharma talks, koan training, the insight of experiential insight with living in the world. So these are the 10 precepts that we are offering. I would say in advance that there is something about these precepts that is, each one is about relationship. How we relate to others, how we relate to ourselves. The first one, I vow to abstain from taking life. To phrase it in a positive way, I vow to serve and protect the lives of all sentient beings. To protect one life is to honor our universal true nature. Second precept, I vow to abstain from taking things not given. In other words, I vow to appreciate the gift of enough mind. How things are in the present moment reality is already complete. Third precept, I vow to abstain from misconduct done in lust. Phrased positively, I vow to honor and respect our relationships as equal and interdependent, and to preserve harmony among loved ones. Fourth one, I vow to abstain from lying. I vow to manifest truth by practicing complete listening and compassionate speech. Sixth precept, I vow not to talk about the faults of others. Some of these are really hard. Now, why I stopped at that one, I don't know. It just popped into my head. To phrase it positively, I vow to see the perfection of the whole. Faults as well as gifts belong to all of us. Seventh, I vow not to praise myself and put down others. Realizing that self and other are one, how can it even be possible to raise myself while lowering others? Eighth, I vow not to be covetous and to be generous. Appreciating all the gifts of this life, I vow to be unstinting with giving it away. 9th, I vow not to give way to anger and to be harmonious. Transforming intense mental states into clarity, I vow to apply that freed energy to bodhisattva action. And the 10th, I vow not to slander the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. I vow to dedicate myself to the path of awakening, the teachings of awakening, and the community that takes refuge in awakening. So in our Zen practice, the responsibility always begins with understanding and exploring our own mind, our own heart condition. Most important is how do we keep our mind? Recognize that in the moment's crosshairs, when your mind is controlled by desire, anger, or ignorance, if this is the case, rely on the precepts to guide us. There are, I'm just sort of giving an outline of this. There are essentially 3 approaches to the precepts. From the temple rules of Pai Chang, who was an early Tang Dynasty master, he said, know when to keep them, when to break them, when they are open and when they are closed. So what this suggests is that on one hand there are the literal precepts. Don't kill. On the other hand, there are the compassionate precepts. No, how can I, it's not so straightforward and linear. If there is some, I'm trying to think of an example. I'll think of an example of a different precept that's easier, about lying. That's so easy to work with. So in the compassionate precepts version of lying, if a Nazi comes to your door during the Holocaust and asks, are you hiding any Jews? And you happen to have a family in the closet, you say, no, I'm not hiding any Jews. This is compassionate, knowing when to keep them, when to break them. It's a pretty obvious one, but there are a lot of subtleties to this. Then finally, there are the universal, keeping the universal precepts. And this is in the realm of before thinking, in the realm of universal mind. There is a freedom in that to do the right thing, moment by moment, not hindered. A trap here, because often enough, Zen students or anybody can think, oh, my mind is clear. I have no problem, so I'll do whatever I want. There are a few problems with this. So there is this subtlety and this broadness in our practicing with the precepts that is very important. So first of all, what I would like to do is for those of you who are interested in taking precepts, maybe while I'm talking, I would like you to write down your name, your email address, and your phone number if you're okay with that. And the reason for that, I'll start with you, Steve. The reason for that is I would like to have us to have a kind of a chat group or a family of those of us who are interested in participating. Between now and when the precepts will be offered, well, I better back up and talk about that a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing is to have two ceremonies, offer two ceremonies for precepts. One pretty soon, the second weekend in April, on Sunday, and just have a couple of old-time students who have been waiting a long time, and have an opportunity for them to take precepts soon. They've already done so much training. The other reason to have this smaller group first is that the tailor who will be making the rakusus, these things, doesn't have much time to do it. So just have just make a few. And then the second bigger ceremony, I'm thinking would be in the fall. Does that seem doable for those of you that are interested? Because between now and then, I would like for the precepts group to meet regularly and talk about the precepts. I have some books that I will recommend, kind of like the way we've been doing Thursday night discussion group. We can figure out a way to find a time when we can meet. I know it's so difficult. You put 3 people together, it's difficult to find the time. But we could, how many of you, it's not WeChat, it's the other, WhatsApp. Are any of you on WhatsApp? Well, it would be a way to create a chat group that we can all belong to, that's just us. Does that sound like I can get one of you guys to instruct us on how to do that, how to sign up for it. Does everybody have a smartphone?
Yeah.
Okay, then we can make it work. Then with that, we can find a time and a place and a way to have us meet. And if we can't all be there all the time, we can record it or something. Figure that out. So sending this around is so that we can create a list. Is there somebody here who would be willing to volunteer to do a tutorial on WhatsApp? How to do it?
I don't know so much about it, but I'm happy to. Do you mean right now?
No, not now. But maybe we can send an email to everybody.
Sure.
Okay. And there'll be a few other names to add to it for people who weren't able to be here in person today. So requirements for taking precepts. I think that just in regards to this meeting about precepts that we'll have at various times, maybe, I don't know, what seems reasonable for you folks? Every other week or once a month?
I have plenty of time, so I'm flexible.
Yeah. We'll send out the email and we'll get a read on that from everybody. Anyway, one prerequisite is that you attend these meetings as much as you are able to. A prerequisite is that you become a member of the Albuquerque Zen Center. Another one is that you have established a relationship with me as your teacher, as your guiding teacher. This doesn't mean that you can't also have a relationship with other teachers. I just want to underline that. But I would be your primary teacher. How's that?
You would be what?
Primary teacher,
Uh-huh.
guiding teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. is that you would commit to taking on an officer position. You know, we have these roles of people who serve as Jiki and Shoji, and that you would take the opportunity to learn how to do that and to practice it, and or find some other way to be a volunteer for the Sangha community. And we can find something, just to give you an idea of what kind of volunteer opportunities there might be. Office help, library, community engagement, building and grounds, cooking, retreat organization, website, tech support, underline, newsletter, Zendo cleaning, meeting room cleaning, pond care, bird care, social media, Sangha care committee. There's lots of different ways that we can all contribute. I think it's so important that a Sangha be a Sangha and be a community together. In Seattle, we have a community care committee, which is very interesting, so that if someone is injured or sick in the community, they need some help, they can tap into this kind of committee. I mean, just recently Meredith had a ski accident, and so by word of mouth, the word is getting out that we can help her. But it would be nice to have some kind of smaller group to look into that. Another requirement is that you must have attended at least 5 days, full days of retreat. Some of you have done hundreds of days of retreat, but it doesn't matter. I think that it's important that you have at least 5, so that you've sunk into it and you've experienced this critical time span of devoting to meditation. You must have practiced with the Sangha for at least a year. I know some of you have been in the Sangha in the past and come back, but in some measure, taking from the past or the current era, at least a year of practicing with this Sangha. It's also possible, if anybody is interested, if you have taken precepts with another Sangha in the past, you can retake precepts with this Sangha. So, any questions so far? In my lineage tradition, one of the things that I'm very interested about being a teacher here is looking at how we can combine different lineage traditions that we have. So I'll be talking with Iko and learning about the Rinzai precepts, traditions, and I will look at how we can creatively and with some just some creativity and authenticity for who I am and who we are, create a precept ceremony for us. And ceremonies can be very beautiful things, not only for oneself when you're taking precepts, but for the community at large, for your family and friends, because this will be open to everyone, the precept ceremony. And it can be quite a moving experience. As a part of the ceremony, you will be given a rakusu, this kind of thing. And I talked about this a little bit at the talk I gave last month, but originally this was meant to symbolize that when Siddhartha took off his royal garments and exchanged them for the robes or the rags of a wandering ascetic. If you think about the rags and the pieces sewn together, that's what this is symbolizing. Of course, it looks a little fancier than rags in its current iteration. But what I'd like us to do is to kind of go back to that a little bit in how we construct our rakusus. The color, the predominant color of Rinzai Zen is black. So one of the first things I heard when I moved here was, we could use a little more color. And I agree. And I think it might naturally come about, for one thing, because in my tradition the colors are gray and brown. So my thinking is that we will have these colors as a base for the design of the rakusus, black, gray, and brown, but also that in the center of this rakusu there's a square in the middle. And what I would like those of you who will be taking precepts to consider is that if you have some fabric, some garment that has some special meaning for you, or even just some color that has some special meaning for you, that can be inserted in the middle square for your own rakusu. I'm pretty sure that I have a tailor lined up for us. Michelle, who I only just recently found out has a background in fashion design, is going to help me pick out fabric. And then the tailor that I've used in the past, who is just brilliant. Hopefully he can put them together for us. So the rakusu is one thing, and then also you will receive a Dharma name. And in my tradition, the Dharma name is just for you. It's not, you don't have to change your name and have everybody struggle to remember. But it's important, and it's for you. On the back of, most of you know this, but on the back there's some inscription. And what Giko and I will be doing is writing your Dharma name on the back and its translation along with the date of the ceremony. So the Dharma name, I'll take a minute, because as a writer, this is very interesting for me, and I think it can be very, very meaningful. So several years ago, after I've been offering precepts for a number of years, my husband, who is a native Chinese speaker, told me about this tradition in rural China, which is still apparently going on today in some parts of China. Every village would have its own home that belongs to that village. So when a new child is born in a given year, they are given a word from this poem as a part of their name. And I was really struck by that. I thought it was very beautiful. So if somebody visiting that village is introduced to someone and they hear this middle name that's from the village poem, then they know, oh, they belong to this village and they were born in this year. So in that spirit, we'll be having this Sangha poem be our bell chant that we do. And the translation is in the chanting book if you're curious about it. So in a way that whoever is taking precepts this year will be that family, in that family, and we'll share one name. then the given name will be one that matches for each one of you individually, and that will be Japanese. So the last name, the family name, is Korean. Given name will be Japanese, and it will be written out in Chinese. So we've covered the whole Asian history of Sen in one name. I might even get my husband to do the calligraphy for your names, and he's a very good calligrapher, very talented. I'll see if I can twist this up. So that's about the rakusus and the Dharma names. I made some copies of what I've just talked about, and at the end, I have a section titled Homework, which you can take as you like, as you see fitting. You might want to keep a journal of just reflections on these precepts as time goes by. We'll create some kind of a precepts chat group, and so we can make arrangements to meet or to share information with each other. And I have a reading list here of 4 books that, you don't have to read them all, but you could dip into them as you like. And they can be a source of questions or inspiration for conversation with the group. Any comments, questions?
Will you decide on when and how often we're going to meet?
I think so, yeah, because I just want to be sensitive to people's busy schedules and the complexity of just all getting together at all. But if we set up this chat group on WhatsApp, we can maybe get a sense of that. Does that sound like a good idea? I'm open to any other.
So the group would meet on the internet as opposed to in person?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. What do you think? Would it be easier if we met, or would you rather not meet on Zoom?
I think having both would be good.
Oh, yeah.
I live fairly far, so it's a bit of a thing to come personally.
Yeah.
And I like chat groups and things like that. And you could even do it, where you see each other, like Google Meet, for example. So I would be in favor of having both,
Yeah, that makes sense to me. After all, when we have our Sangha discussions, we have the Zoom on while we're talking. Other ideas? Any concerns? Okay, Kevin, I'm going to rely on you to
I can do it.
yeah, so you can pass that back to Kevin.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll add some names to it. I'll send them to you when I find out who else is planning on being a part of this.
We were just talking about WhatsApp. It's highly private and encrypted and stuff. So it's,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate your interest in taking precepts. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Oh, and I have copies. Here, you could just pass them. Okay. Nothing formal here.
It's not something We met informally before. Say cheese.
Recording in progress.
It's pretty good. It's,